Welcome to From the Hill. I'm your host, State Representative Jim Arciero. It's a very busy time on Beacon Hill right now at the tail end of May. The House and the Senate have both passed their state budgets respectively in the area of $34 billion. And since we've passed them on both branches, now we move to something called the Conference Committee. It's essentially when 3 House members and 3 Senate members go through line item by line item to agree on any differences they may have in the budget. So constitutionally, we are required in the legislature and the general court to have a balanced budget every single year. So therefore, it's critical to not only the Commonwealth for needed services and funding, but it's critical for the House and the Senate to come with a resolution before the 31st of July, where we're required to have a balanced budget. And I would also like to announce that in the towns that I represent, the towns of Chelmsford, Littleton, and Westford, we've had modest increases in local aid, in public safety, as well as education in the form of Chapter 70 for our K through 12 throughout the district. So I'm very pleased with that. Something that I've been working on over the last 3.5 years now is a public safety matter regarding the sex offender registry. About 3.5 years ago, there was an incident in the neighborhood that I live in Westford, in Forge Village, where a 17-year-old was sexually assaulted by a level 2 sex offender. And the outrage at the time was not so much that people didn't know initially about the incident after it happened, but that when they Googled the information about the individual, there was no information on the sex offender registry online that he was a level 2 sex offender or his whereabouts. What had happened was he was a registered sex offender in here, as well as in Massachusetts, in Westford, as well as in Florida. But when constituents decided to Google and find out more information about this individual, they found that there was no information online in Massachusetts. I received numerous phone calls at the time. We had public forums with Chief McEnany, Chief Kelly in Littleton, as well as community outreach with a number of victims assistance groups, including Lori Myers, who's worked very closely with me on this issue, to put this information online for level 2 sex offenders. And I'm pleased to announce that in this particular House budget, I was able to get the language in the House budget and accepted and passed in the House. And Senator Donahue and Senator Eldridge worked very hard on the Senate side with me to make sure that that was accomplished on that side as well. So this piece of legislation would again allow the information for level 2 sex offenders to be online. There's also a fiscal impact with this as well. Right now we would be eligible, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts would be eligible for over $600,000 per year in Byrne grant funding. And Byrne grant funding essentially is for the installation of this online system for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, as well as general public safety funding. But I would like to announce that this was passed by both branches, and we await now the signature of the governor, and it will be law. But today we have a friend, Andrew Sylvia from the Westford Patch, as well as the Chelmsford Patch, the editor of both of those online newspapers. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I decided, folks, back at home that I wanted to do something a little bit different than my normal show. I decided that I was elected in 2008 and took office in 2009. And part of every elected official, regardless if you're state, local, or federal, is dealing with the media and answering questions to the media. That's part of our job. I decided to turn the tables on the media a little bit, and I decided, why don't I have the editors of the newspapers that I deal with,
hope I'm ready.
The Westford Patch, the Chelmsford Patch, and Joyce Crane is going to be scheduled to be coming on soon as the Westford Eagle editor, and she's also taken on as the Littleton Independent editor, and Jim Campanini, the editor from the Lowell Sun. Why don't I ask them questions this time? Why don't we turn the tables a little bit?
Uh-oh.
But I'm really happy you came on, Andrew, and thank you so much for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me. It'll be nice to have the shoe on the other foot for once. See
I know.
How you feel?
I know.
So I'll try to be a little bit more gentle to you in the future.
Well, I don't know that's the outcome we're looking for, but there's definitely questions I think that this district always has about the Westford Patch. I think we talked a little bit before the show started that it was about 3 years ago the patch started?
About 3 years ago. It began in December 2010. Jason Claffey was the first editor. He was actually a Westford native. He graduated from Westford Academy, and he moved up to the Exeter patch when that started. And that was in May of 2011. That's when I came on board. I had been working as a freelancer with the patch as well as some other newspapers in New Hampshire, like the Nashua Telegraph and the Union Leader. And they said, hey, there's an opening right near you. Would you be interested? And I'm glad that they came. This has been such a great experience for me. I grew up in this area. I grew up in Merrimack, New Hampshire, which is, as you know, is right up the road.
Certainly.
There's a lot of Western people who work at places in Merrimack. As a kid, I worked at the movie theater in Tingsboro, so I mean, this is my stomping
Speaking
grounds.
of which, have you heard about the improvements at that theater?
I've seen it.
I know, I haven't been there yet.
Reclining
That's
seats.
what I'm hearing.
And you got to go.
I don't want to digress too much, but you know, our fondness for movie theaters. However, nonetheless, but you know, there's obviously the patches has sort of changed the way Westford viewers read the newspapers. I mean, as you know, being around. Being around the media, of course you are the media, but being around other media outlets, print journalism, is starting to slowly, or even in some cases rapidly changing to an online system. And the patch, I would say a lot, it's must reading for, in the towns that you represent. I know in Westford and Chelmsford, where they have a patch, it's real time, and with Facebook and social media, especially for my job. We need to know information quickly, and for the most part, the public, they really demand to have the information right away. So I think for the audience at home, explain the difference of what as an editor, how the patch differs from other print journalisms. Even though the Lowell Sun and the Westford Eagle and the community newspapers, they do have an online presence and they do an excellent job. How does the patch differ?
Well, actually, that's a good point. Good thing you mentioned that. We're technically not a newspaper, even though every local editor at the patch, patches across the country and here across Massachusetts has newspaper experience. We strive to be more of a collaborative experience, a place where people in the community can bring their own news, and we're just a facilitator. That's as for folks who read the patch, you'll see me in the comment section having conversations with people. That's the expectation. We want to be a gathering place for people, and that's our goal. That's how I believe we see ourselves different from other media outlets. That's not to say anything bad about them, but that's what we're striving to do.
Now, how did the patch first start? I mean, was it an idea by one individual? Was it a conglomerate of journalists who said we need to get things out there quicker? Or
that was way before my time. That was in I believe 2008 or 2009. The CEO of AOL, I believe, Tim Armstrong, and some of his colleagues in Connecticut said, "We don't have a local newspaper in our town. What's up with that? We should start our own." And so Patch was born. Eventually, it became part of America Online, and in the New York, Connecticut, New Jersey area, and then it spread out from there. Around when it started here in Massachusetts, it went from, there was about 80 patches at that point, and now there's about 900 nationwide, 850 to 900, and there's about 80 to 90 here in Massachusetts. Like, for example, nearby there's one in Tewksbury, one in Wilmington, there's one right over the board in Nashua, so there's a lot of them around here.
Now, Littleton doesn't have one now.
No.
I was just curious to know why. I know Littleton would love it, so,
that's above my pay grade.
Yeah, no,
unfortunately,
of course.
I can't speak for that, but I know most patches are in communities between 20,000 and around 80,000 people. So it's a small town feel. And I know in some areas, like, for example, Boston, they have, instead of a Boston patch, there's a Back Bay patch and a Beacon Hill patch.
Beacon Hill patch, sure.
So, because those are communities, too. They're neighborhoods. We're trying to capture the essence of a neighborhood, of a town, a small town. We just looking at places that have been overlooked by larger outlets, I guess.
Do you feel that there's a true interest in real-time journalism? I know you're not a journalist.
I am a journalist.
Well, you're a journalist, but you're not a newspaper. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
But Do you feel that there's really a desire for most individuals now to find out their real-time media right now and know what's going on immediately with social media, with Twitter, with Facebook? I mean, you see more things on Facebook and Twitter being broken as stories now, and the Patch, than you do, on a daily newspaper, a Boston Globe, a New York Times, a Washington Post, a Westford Eagle, and they're competing as well. I mean, they're breaking stories, on their online system. But if you notice, for instance, Joyce and Sarah Favett, the reporter for Westford, she has a Twitter account, and they constantly break stories, and there's almost sort of a competition to be breaking stories. Anything about that?
That's part of being a journalist in general. It's like you said, people expect very quick things these days, and whenever there's something really urgent, we try to get it out as soon as we can. It's just, like you said, it's just the expectation people have nowadays.
And obviously, it's very helpful to me to get information right away. Although sometimes we would all like to slow things down a little bit.
It'd be nice.
With technology and the way that social media has progressed these days. But how did you said initially you got involved with the Patch when Jason left. I remember working a little bit with Jason when. I think, it must have been 09, because I was first sworn in 09, and I was working with Jason a little bit, and Patch was a new concept. And were you involved with any sort of media, groups before? Or did you work for many newspapers before, or what was your interest?
Yeah, I worked for, like I said, the Nashua Telegraph and the Union Leader as a freelancer. I also worked with the Cabinet Press, which is in Milford, New Hampshire. As a freelancer, they're actually owned by the Telegraph, and then some other small newspapers here and there. That's what I went to college for. I graduated from Keene State in 2004 with a bachelor's degree in journalism.
Okay.
So.
And you had some interest. We've talked about this in politics. Is that true too?
Yeah, that's a long time ago. I think I'm much better off here in Westford. I'll leave the politics to you. I mean. You have the suit on. I just have the green. I was expecting a green screen. That's why I brought this.
Oh yeah, that's right. We could just put in any outfit afterwards with this beautiful new studio here. We could put a tuxedo on you later. No, but it's interesting because I think we first met, Andrew, when you took over, and I would see you camped out at Starbucks. So talk a little bit about the Patch. It's almost kind of like a virtual office, isn't it?
In a way, yes. We don't have office space like other media outlets. We're expected to be in the field. We're expected to be in our communities that we cover on a regular basis. That's why you guys will see me out there in Westford, whether it's at Starbucks or at whatever I'm covering, or I am in Westford all the time, as you know.
I know. I used to. It's funny because I think we would always joke with each other that now your job is literally 7 days a week.
Basically, yes.
I don't want to say you're on call, but if something breaks, I'm sure an editor would give you a text or a call or whatever, right?
Something big, yeah.
Or an email.
I'm trying to cut it down a little bit, but at this point, it's about 60 to 75 hours a week.
So you're essentially a reporter, an editor, a photographer, and you have a deadline every night.
Yeah.
Every night.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure.
It is. And one good thing, we are having some changes with the Patch, some changes for the good. We, here in Westford, as well as Chelmsford, we have two new people helping me out. Matt Schooley, who actually lives just over the border, just down the street in Chelmsford. He is our field editor. He was the editor in Wilmington. And what the field editor is doing is they're helping out with sports as well as some other stuff. So you'll see his name on there. He actually covered the Westford Academy Chelmsford softball game yesterday. That was up this morning. And also Danielle Masterson. She is our community editor. She was formerly the editor of the Woburn Patch. And she helps people with, if they have any questions about getting local voices columns up or events. If there's anything you need to know about how the Patch works, she's the person to go to. She knows far more than me. She's actually been with the Patch longer than me. So.
Now, some of the, the concepts were, initially, when you talked at the top of the show, were that the Patch wanted to be sort of a local feel. I think I've heard a few individuals call the Patch a hyper-local. Mm-hmm. Which essentially is, super local because you can't, just because of constraints of other newspapers, et cetera, you can't cover everything. But you try to do that. And I think we were talking before, we always used to kid that when we first met, I would see you at every single event. Our jobs kind of paralleled in the fact that we went to a lot of events. We have to be on call all the time. And we're not millionaires.
Yeah.
And so, essentially that is something that comes with a job. But I think at the same point, we both love our job, and we both love what we do, and being part of the community, and always sort of being able to, connect with the fabrics of the community are rewarding. Now, how is the patch? I mean, I think initially we had talked about how the patch, you try to get more individuals to actually provide their own information, provide to the public. They want to provide their own stories, their own concepts, and less of you reporting and more of people sort of being an actual community-based newspaper where people write their own stuff. Want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, like you said before with things like Facebook and Twitter, that's the wave of the future. And I think that's what Patch is trying to get at as a company. Again, I can't speak for that overall, but we want to make people feel like it's not, we want to provide a platform for them. And so there's no more middleman. I mean, in journalism, the theory is called the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
That's what used to happen, where all the newspapers, all the television stations, they could decide what is newsworthy and what's not.
Right.
And that model's gone.
Right.
With the internet, with Facebook, that doesn't work anymore.
Right.
So what now, it's basically all white noise, and what journalists try to do now is aggregate. It's trying to pick out the white noise so people can see what they might be interested in hearing, but anybody can contribute that white noise. So what we try to do is provide people a platform where they can get things that they want to talk about recognized, make them featured. That's the future of journalism, and we're trying to do our best to.
Now, talk to me a little bit about being a gatekeeper, because it's funny.
It's definitely.
I don't know. Most folks that read online newspapers, read the Patch, etc. The comment pages, the comment portions of the stories tend to be some of the more interesting. Some people tend to use those forums to exercise their anger, exercise their disagreement with the article, etc. But you've had some pretty sort of shaky moments where you had to sort of intervene and tell individuals to cool it or move forward. Not mentioning any names, but any of the kind of interesting sort of subjects that came up and you had to intervene?
Oh, well, there's been a few here and there. I think that's one expectation I think Westford readers have implied on me, and I try to listen to what they're telling me. They want a civil but thought-provoking atmosphere to share their opinions, and sometimes I become the de facto moderator for some other patches when they are involved in Westford. It's just that's what Westford wants, and I want to do what Westford wants in terms of the news they give. I'm not going to sugarcoat things, but I'm going to try to provide an atmosphere where they feel comfortable to share their views, share their opinions.
Now, it's have you noticed? You represent. You're an editor of two communities which I represent. I have 3 precincts in the town of Chelmsford. Both towns are very service-oriented. Both towns have wonderful volunteers and leaders who care very deeply about their communities. Do you see a lot of differences between the two communities? I mean, one is, of course, 34,000, another is 22,000. But do you see any differences? I mean, you have to put on 2 different hats for the communities, and they must differ a little bit.
They do. It's amazing. There's a lot of similarities, and there's a lot of differences. As you know, and maybe some of our viewers know, the 2 towns were one town until 1729. So I think there's some echo of that in terms of similarities. But then again, I will have almost the exact same story with a few things changed for Westford context versus Chelmsford context, and one town will really hone in on it, and the other town won't. It's like I don't really understand why. It's amazing how different the little things are. Getting that second community, and I got that. I started in Chelmsford last year after Krista Perry left, so it's been a great experience over there too.
One of the things I for all the viewers at home, I think one of the things I always look to when I click onto the patch each and every morning is 5 things today. Now, I think that's a wonderful concept. I think, initially when I first met you, I said that is wonderful because, each day that any individual in Westford or Chelmsford wants to read what's going on, you want to find the top 5 things. Now, do you agonize over which is the top 5 things? And how did you start that? How did you start that? Is that a patch concept?
That's a patch thing, and it's not all the patches, but all the patches around here do it. And I'm proud to say I think some of my 5 things are some of the best 5 things in the patch system. Right. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on, and again, going back to what we said before, I view it as a way to help promote what other people are doing. Mm-hmm. For people who read it every day, most of it comes from things that people submit. Mm-hmm. We try to focus on that. We try to hone in on. It's not about us. It's not about me. It's about all of you. It's about everybody in the community, and we try to make sure people are knowing what's going on in the community. That's the heart of what the 5 things is.
I've noticed though that previous to the patch, and I love my other newspapers for the record, but previous to the patch, I noticed that other papers didn't always have the top 5 things, and people love that.
Yeah. People
always raved about that's great because I can get right away. I can exactly know what's going on today and this weekend because every day's different and there's always things going on. But I've noticed other newspapers starting to do it too now. I've seen top 10, top 7, but it's great. I think it's something that I think the patch for many readers it has had other newspaper companies start to sort of understand some of the things that you do well, and adapt some of those to their newspaper as well. And I think it's been a great sort of spirited competition between all the newspapers in this region, and it's brought even raised the level of everybody else's newspaper, and I think it's a good thing.
Thanks. I try my best. I know all I can do is just work as hard as I can. I try not to worry about what other people are thinking about me, so I just try to hone in on what Westford is doing, what Westford is saying, what's going on in Westford, and just be there. I just I'm everywhere. If you're doing something, you will probably see me at one point.
Well, it's not an event, folks, until you see Andrew walking around with a giant camera, and his.
It's not giant. The professional photographers,
sure,
they're bigger than me.
His bag full of tricks. It's a real event when that happens. But one of the things, and we're coming close to the end of the show, but one of the things I want to talk about too is the community blogs, and. I've been spotty with putting on some blogs about events, but obviously we have a very good working relationship, and I send quite a bit of stuff to the patch to inform the community and the district about what's going on. But for the folks at home, if they wanted to get involved with starting their own sort of blog on the patch in Chelmsford or Westford, how would they do that?
Oh, it's very simple. All you need is a free account. You just go to the top right-hand side of the page, and there's a little link there. And then if you'd like to submit a local voices column, all you need to do, there's a little button with like a little pencil. Like it's just on the patch, you'll see 4 stories at the top. It's right beneath that.
Okay.
And if you ever have any questions, Danielle Masterson, our community editor, she's here to help. That's her job. You can reach both her and me by emailing westford@patch.com, and you can reach her by emailing danielle.masterson@patch.com. She will love to help you. That's what she's here to do.
Now, you've told me in the past, and even at the top of the show, that you have sort of a virtual office. You find a place with your laptop, and you type your story in, and you get on the phone, and you talk to people to put the story together. But you also sort of have regional meetings with other patch editors. Is that fluctuate, or is there a home office in Massachusetts, or?
Well, AOL has an office in Boston,
okay.
So we go down there every now and then. I've worked with other patch editors in terms of we talk all the time.
Okay.
Online.
So you collaborate with statewide stories and stuff.
Statewide story, yeah. As you might see on the patch, we have a State House thing on the weekends.
Now, do you subscribe to the State House News Service? Is that how you get your stories typically? Or?
They do. It's things that don't have Westford in it aren't me. But so it's one thing people might not know. The Westford patch is more than just me. It's Danielle, and it's Matt, and it's also other people across the state. So My job is just Westford and Chelmsford and Nicky Songus stuff on the Nicky Songus beat. So
now, did you ever think? People ask me this all the time when getting involved in the state legislature and state politics. Did you think when you were in college, or did you think when you were in high school, that you would be, engaged in the media and being an editor of a community newspaper, or not a newspaper?
I think I did. When I actually originally went to college as a geography major, believe it or not, and I just started writing for my college newspaper, and before I knew it, I was halfway to a journalism degree. I knew that this was what I was supposed to do. I actually tried some other things for a few years, but I came back to it because this is what I'm meant to do, especially here in a town like Westford, where people just appreciate getting news. And I know there's a lot of other areas where the media is forlorn, but here I think Westford appreciates someone who works hard, and I want to make sure they continue liking what I do. If I ever lose their confidence, I'll do whatever I can to get it back, but hopefully I can keep that.
Sure. I mean, it's very difficult to hit as many events as you hit. I think most likely in the town of Westford, I would probably say that Patty Mason probably ties you for as many events as she can get to.
She's our unofficial copy editor. Sometimes she'll email me, Andrew, you spelled...
We love you, Patty.
Yeah, we love you, Patty. You added an extra E in the...
Right. No, I think you rival Patty Mason in terms of how many events, and I think at Chelmsford you rival Tom Cristiano. Is what you get to. So Tom, that's a shout out to you as well.
I don't know what I would do without Tom or Patty.
Okay. Well, Andrew, thank you. We're coming to the end of the show, and I really appreciate you coming in today. You're the first segment of three when we're going to be showcasing the editors of the respected media outlets. The Westford Eagle, Littleton Independent editor Joyce Crane will be next, and Jim Campanini from the Lowell Sun. But I don't think I threw too many zingers at you, right? You had enough,
I hope not.
You had enough room for movement on some of those questions, so you're all right. But really appreciate you coming in. The town of Westford and Chelmsford really appreciate all the work you do and how committed you are to it and how passionate you are about not only getting the story right, but making sure that you provide coverage to very important and special things. And one last thing before we get off the show, and
Sure.
What would you say was the most interesting event you've covered, Chelmsford, Westford, as a patch person, editor?
Oh my God, you stumped me. Oh, it's next to impossible to say that, because every single year I write approximately 2,000 to 3,000 stories.
Wow.
I don't think I could give you one. Every single day is a new adventure. It's always a little bit different.
Well, keep doing what you're doing, Andrew. We appreciate everything you've done for the two towns, and tune into the Westford Patch to find out the new 5 things going on in the community of Chelmsford and in Westford, and look towards my new show coming up, which will be pretty soon. I'm going to be showcasing, as I said, the 3 editors of the 3 media outlets that cover Chelmsford, Westford, and Littleton. And look for my office hours that will be in the Patch and the Eagle, the Chelmsford Independent, the Littleton Independent, and the Lowell Sun of my upcoming office hours. Enjoy your summer, and I'll see you next time.